Hello, this is Seb Kennedy, Energy Flux. I am, as you can tell, relaunching a podcast. And I say relaunching because I did have a podcast when I started this newsletter. I ran for about a year or so, had lots of interesting guests on it and really, really fun. But it was really hard work because it ended up consuming almost my entire working week, coordinating with guests and making it happen. But here I am, having another go at it. Didn't intend to, but I've had a little run of podcast appearances on other people's podcasts. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive from so many listeners. And I realized that there's really an appetite for people who want to get their energy news and analysis and insights and commentary in audio format, and that I'm not reaching those people by just only doing the written word. So I thought, well, all right. It's so easy now. You can just launch a podcast with the click of a button, get back on the airwaves and just share kind of brief snippets with readers of Energy Flux to make it a bit more kind of intimate, a bit more interactive. That's the concept behind this podcast. It's going to be me chatting about stuff that I'm seeing in the market, stuff that I'm writing about, and then opening it out to questions which people can email to me. I thought that could be quite a nice, interesting and sustainable way of doing a podcast. And so that's what it will be. So you can email me. My email address is seb@energyflux.news. And you can also message me through the Substack app and hit me up with a message. I'll be getting online every week to talk things through, to open the mailbag, chat through some of the comments that people have left me and share my thoughts and talk a little bit about gas markets. Mostly, which is obviously what Energy Flux focuses on primarily. Just on gas markets, then it's just incredibly bullish right now. The European gas market, it's completely broken out. I mean, I spent most of last year kind of talking about the reasons why prices were inflated and the bull run had no kind of fundamental basis. And, I think obviously that thesis has been proven completely wrong. 2025 has just exploded up through all the resistance levels. Price of gas traded on the tidal transfer facility, it's pushing up to 60 euros per megawatt hour, which are prices we haven't seen since 2023 amidst post-invasion demand destruction period, which I talked about on the Redefining Energy podcast recently. It's any kind of bearish sentiment whatsoever in the European gas market has completely capitulated. Prices just seem to be racing north on what looks like technical momentum. The fundamentals don't really completely justify the movements we're seeing. So I still think that, there's going to have to be a kind of reconciliation with reality at some point, and not least because like at these prices, then, gas is becoming uncompetitive with other fuels. Diesel generation is going to come back if gas prices keep rising up because it'd be cheaper to fire up a diesel generator. Same for coal as well. Gas is breaking out of the coal to gas switching band. So, the demand destruction is going to accelerate, the higher these prices go. But this market, it's not based on fundamentals entirely. The speculative positions have been massively rewarded. The investment funds for taking big speculative bets on, TTF futures. And, it's been a real money spinner for them. So I imagine that will just carry on for a while until, the bubble bursts, essentially. And I'm not going to call it. I'm not going to call when that bubble is likely to burst. It's impossible to know, really. It could happen at any moment, but I mean, I can tell by the sounds I'm outside and, it's chilly. Everyone's got their thermostats up, myself included. Gas draw is pretty substantial at the moment. And I think until, we see the kind of bottoming out of the demand draw, the gas storage facilities, draining out, then we're not probably going to see any likelihood of that kind of TTF bubble bursting at all. I think we've got to wait probably a few more months for that to happen, and for European leaders to wake up to the reality that they still have an energy problem on their hands, a gas problem. I wouldn't call it a crisis because, it's not quite at the levels that we saw after Russia invaded Ukraine, but it is, it is a problem. And I would say it's a problem of their own making. because, and one of the things that's going to be discussed this week at very high levels are some of the regulations around gas storage in the EU. And as regular readers of Energy Flux will be aware, then, the kind of mandatory refilling targets that the EU has implemented are really, they part of the problem. They give speculative investment funds the ability to take out bullish positions at given intervals throughout the refilling season, and gas storage operators are essentially held hostage by the rules which they have to comply with. They have to go and procure the gas. So if you go long on gas, knowing that gas storage operators in Germany and Holland and France have to buy a certain amount of volume to comply with their regulations, then it's very simple trade, really, isn't it? You go long in those months, and then when they need the gas, they take it off your hands. You cash out your position and make extraordinary returns on your investments at the expense of consumers, which is one of the things that I really struggle to understand how any of this represents good value for money for consumers. I mean, I don't have any skin in the game apart from being a consumer myself and kind of caring about the health and prosperity of, people generally, hardworking people, and obviously the industries that employ them too. Energy intensive industries are just so pressured at the moment. Deindustrialization is such a buzzword in Western Europe. And part of the reason that it's happening is because energy prices have become so intolerably expensive that, operating such facilities becomes uneconomic in a global marketplace. But, there'll be so much to talk about the outlook for natural gas in the context of the seasonality question. As demand does finally start to dip and the refilling begins, it's like we're going to see more bullishness, or could we see a change to the regulations, which is on the cards potentially for this week? It'll be very interesting to see if the European Union or the gas storage operators come up with alternative proposals to kind of relax these rules, which seem to be providing a real solid foundation for bullish speculative positioning, which is inflating prices. In fact, Eurogas, which is an association of European gas wholesalers and retailers, did put out a position statement yesterday saying that these rules are they should be relaxed. We should be focusing a bit more on market-based solutions that don't kind of bestow so much market power onto one side of the market participants. We will see. That news could come out tomorrow on Wednesday. But looking further ahead, just to kind of set the scene, I suppose, we've got, the potential of a trade war between the US and China. Well, it's not really a potential. I think it is really happening now. The US is putting big 25% tariffs on steel. That's going to be extremely problematic for the construction of new liquefied natural gas projects on the US Gulf Coast and potentially in Alaska or on the West Coast in California. That's going to make those projects less economically viable. So there could be a real squeeze on new projects coming through in the kind of the late 2020s, which could tighten up supply and erode any possibility of a glut really emerging, which is something I've written about again in very great depth in Energy Flux. And then, the threat from Trump for the EU to buy more American liquefied natural gas, is hanging over Europe, and he's threatening withdrawing from NATO and, the negotiations around the potential peace settlement in Ukraine, the future of Russian natural gas, both in liquefied form and via pipeline. All these things are in play. The Middle East is, just a tinderbox. Regime change in Syria, could it spread to other places? What about Iran? It's sitting on the world's second biggest gas reserves. I mean, the gas space is it boggles the mind to think about all the possibilities as all the rule books are torn open, and this kind of very precarious, strange new world order emerges from all the events emanating from the US and that profoundly consequential election, which Trump was, of course, returned to the White House. So, it's going to be a lot to talk about. I could probably ramble on for hours and hours, but I do respect people's time, and, we're all busy. So I don't want to give you like hours and hours of audio every week, but this is really just a placeholder that, I'm going to be on the airwaves if you want to hear from me, if you want to engage with me, if you want to send me questions. Says I'm not an expert. I'm just a journalist who follows this stuff very closely, but I don't know everything, and I'm learning every day, every week by writing this stuff. It is just a phenomenal way to educate yourself. Commit to writing a newsletter. The more you look at it, then the more you learn, the more nuanced it becomes, the more complicated it is. I've learnt more than I could possibly have imagined by embarking on this venture and persevering with it. I made contacts with people who I could never have met in any other way. I had a lot of fun along the way. It's been great fun. I love doing this, and I love hearing from readers. I love engaging with people, and that's really the purpose of this podcast. It's just a very personal platform for people to kind of get a little bit closer and share those insights and deepen our understanding of where markets are at. So I will leave it at that for now. But I'm going to syndicate this podcast across all your platforms, Apple, Spotify. You should be able to find it everywhere. Obviously, I'll send out a note to the Energy Flux email list every time that there's a new episode. So you'll be able to listen wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon.